If you're a parent, you've probably noticed the world is moving pretty fast, and its ideas are moving right along with it. And if you're like me, you might not be too happy about some of those ideas, especially when you realize they're being forced on our kids at an extremely young age. So what can we do about that? That's an important question given that we as parents are ultimately responsible for raising our children. Talking to our little ones is a great place to start, and reading to them is a great way to promote discussion. That brings me to a vital resource I want you to be aware of. It's a picture book for readers aged 4 through 9, which introduces the topic of compelled speech to children. Ollie Adamson's Strawberries Are Red, a story about compelled speech, gently introduces this topic and is sure to encourage great discussion between you and your little one. Freedom of speech is essential, and our children should be made aware of this. This book is available on Amazon, and I encourage you to order your copy today. We owe it to our kids. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. I hope this week has found you well. I know for me, I just started a new job, orientation all week. Here's the thing, guys. I wore a hard hat for a very long time, right? My idea of information technology was only based upon what I had in the house and whatnot. Never used any kind of real office technology software, what have you. So this week has been like a crash course for me trying to learn these different office systems. And man, I could use some good vibes. That's all I'm going to say. Could use a little help in that department. So if you're the good vibe sending out type of person or praying type, I could certainly use all of that. But rolling into this week, I have a phenomenal episode, man. These are two people that I happened to meet from their acquaintances of, if you guys remember Lizzy last year, she was on the show. I'm going to have her on again soon. But these are a couple of friends of hers, so she linked me up with them. And not only do they have a very powerful story of recovery, but they also have a recovery program that they are starting up and have had a lot of success with. And they kind of explained that to me. And guys, I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to see where this goes, how this thing takes off, because it's very much so needed. So without any further ado, here is Lane and Spike. All right, I am here with Lane and Spike, and I am so pumped about this. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Lane, your friend Lizzy is the one who got us linked up together, and you know, for the audience members out there, Lizzy was somebody who came on and told her story, phenomenal story, and I have no doubt that y'all's will be any different. But if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience, you can.
Yeah, you go first.
I'm Spike.
I'm Lane. Lizzy is actually like one of the reasons we're together. I don't know if you know that part of that story.
I do not know that part.
But she's a crucial piece of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. I did not know Lizzy was the matchmaker. Look at her.
In some way, he was living with her during that time. So there was a lot in the beginning that was, you know, she was around for a lot of it, I should say.
Yeah, it took me a minute to realize who we were talking about. But yeah, that is, she was there when that happened.
Right on. So why don't you tell me about you? Like, what is the story of Lane and Spike? Like, where do you guys come from? How did you guys meet, and where you're at today?
Do you want me to go?
If you want. I think this is funny because you're telling, you know, we're telling a couple's recovery story. When you first said that, I was like, we're not a couple's recovery story. We're just two people in recovery, and we happen to be a couple. And my brain immediately made that distinction. But my recovery story really starts, I guess the last leg of it really starts with Spike and that part of my life. So my story is, you know, our story, but I want to hear your version of that story.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Of our story.
This is going to be fun. I can't wait for this. This is going to be great, man. I'm so pumped.
I mean, I feel like to tell it, I kind of have to start at the beginning. How long do we have?
Long as you want, buddy.
Is this a two-parter? I'll give the condensed version of me to start with, because that brings us to us. I first got addicted to heroin when I was around 14 years old. I was on it like solid throughout my teens. And by the time I was 18 years old, I had started going to like county jail. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was serving a 10-year prison sentence in a lifer prison in Colorado.
God damn.
And, you know, I spent a lot of years getting out and doing okay for a little while, and then screwing up and going back. I went back a total of 4 times for 9.5 years over a 20-year period. And, you know, the rest of that 20 years I was on paper. I was on parole or whatever, halfway house, whatever it was at the time. And there's a lot more to that, but, you know, we're not in group right now, so I don't have to really go that deep into it. I'll just say that I got to a point, I was 34, I guess, 33 or 34. And I was back in prison, and I was tired of that life. And I made the decision to just shut the door forever on hard drugs and alcohol specifically. I've been in recovery now for about 7 years. Full disclosure, I do smoke marijuana, which I was totally sober for like 5 years, and then I decided to try it and decide if it was, going to work for my life or not. And it's been great for me. Like, it's helped my appetite. It's helped me with a lot of things. So I decided that was okay for me. And, but altogether, I've been, without alcohol and hard drugs for about 7 years.
That's huge, man. That's huge.
Have a plug that works.
I got it.
Sorry, we're
You're okay.
over here.
You're okay. No, I have just on the marijuana thing, you know, like I've got a few stories of recovery that I've interviewed people on, and I'm a big advocate for harm reduction around here. You know,
Sure.
I know the broader 12-step community is mired in tradition, and some of it good, some of it really good. Some of it just needs to, I think, catch up, but it will in its own time. But I mean, if anybody's honest, like, how could you possibly have the stance that you would rather people still be on heroin instead of something much safer like marijuana? And furthermore, just to expand on that, man, like, you look at the modern day pharmaceutical industry and what they would like everybody to be on. You know, would you want somebody's medicine cabinet filled with just endless amounts of pills that are destroying your liver? Or would you rather somebody be on a tincture or you know, edible of some sort?
Well,
Pretty
and that's
simple.
another big part of it for me is I've done construction type of work for most of my life. I've been real hard on my body just in general, and a lot of it is pain management for me, you know, and it's not even just staying away from opiate painkillers. It's also staying away from taking like ibuprofen and shit all the time. That's super hard on your liver
Yeah.
and your kidneys. You know, I mean, I'm sure there will be recovery people that will hear this and think, oh, whatever, you know, that's California sober or whatever they want to call it. But I'm not doing this to prove anything to anybody. I'm proving this to find the path in my life that I'm most comfortable with. And I imagine we'll get into it later with our group that we started here in Tulsa, which is based on that principle, you know,
Harm reduction.
You don't have to be sober to come and dump your shit off if you need to, you know what I mean? But we'll get into that later. So 7 years for me altogether. What are you, 4 now?
It'll be 4 in June.
It'll be 4. See, she has a date. I don't have a date. I was in prison at the time I got sober, and my life was real chaotic, and I wasn't paying attention, and I don't have a date, but I know that it was like roughly 7 years. So that's good enough for me.
And I just also want to say real quick, that is a feat in and of itself. So many people not in the know don't realize how the amount of drugs that are in penal institutions across this country. So for somebody to not only find recovery, but keep recovery in prison, dude, my hat's off to you, brother. That's fucking huge, man. That is huge.
Yeah. So, Lane and I, oh man, there's so much story.
Let me go. Can I go?
You go. Go ahead.
I'm going.
Please go ahead.
Take it away, Lane.
So I moved to Colorado. I moved back to Colorado. And I met Spike through a girl I was dating. I met Spike with his current partner. There was a woman that he was spending time with, and I just fell in love with them. The two of them together were just so beautiful and cool, and they were sober. And I was really struggling at that point in my life. I was having a really, really hard time. I'm coming out of a really gnarly relationship and really just not wanting to be in Colorado at all. I didn't have any support there. I didn't want to be there. And so I met Spike, and Spike and I ended up running into each other a lot. We go to the same kind of shows, and we like to, you know, we're into the same kind of music. And so I would run into him a lot. And during that time, I was doing that. I think a lot of people do this thing at the end of their like active addiction, where they're just kind of like putting their toe in the water. They're doing the like, all right, I'm going to do 100 days, and then like, I'm going to reestablish a healthy relationship with alcohol, and I'm going to be cool. And, you know, so I was doing that. I had mostly cut back on my drug use. Like at that point I was using benzos, but it was like, well, they're prescribed to me, you know, and you know, I was doing that. But I would go through periods where I was, you know, trying to dry out, trying to be clean, and I would find Spike in these shows and public settings, and I was drawn to him. I wanted to be near him. He felt safe to me, and he became like my sober buddy. You know, when I was going through places of sobriety, he was the person that I would go to. I would go stand by him and just like be awkward at a show, because I knew that he was sober, and he, you know, he wasn't awkward necessarily.
I'd like to think that I wasn't awkward, but I don't know. Maybe I was.
So he just kind of became that friend that I called on when, you know, I needed to feel safe, or I needed a reminder about why I was not drinking. And I relapsed several times after we became friends, and, you know, I would relapse and I would like avoid him. You know, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not trying to hang out. And then on June 27th of 2018, I had a major trauma event that I don't really want to get into all the specifics of, but at the end of that event, my son's father was in jail, and I had to completely put all the pieces of my life back together. And Spike was the first person I called that next morning when I woke up and my face was fucking broken, and I, wanted to die. Like, I knew that I couldn't ever drink again. Like, I woke up that morning and realized, like, okay, that had to be the last time that ever happened. I can't ever be in that situation again. And, most of it was on behalf of my son. I have a son. He's amazing. He's 8. Spike is not his dad, but Spike is doing an incredible job being parent to Kingston. We'll get into that later. But so Spike was the first person I called. And part of the reason I called him was because I legitimately had like legal questions.
She was like, "You've been in jail."
Like, he was my prison friend, and like I needed help. I was like, I had questions, and I didn't, he wasn't really the guy. He's not an attorney, as it turns out. He's a felon. But
Close enough, damn it.
And so he came over that day, and he sat with me, and he, brought me water and made sure I ate, and he kind of, as a completely just platonic, as a friend, as a homie, as a a solid person in my life, helped me put the pieces back together. Shortly after that, we were banging, but it started really sweet, and from this point of just, he was a safe space.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's still very sweet.
It's so sweet still. Aww. But yeah, so my story started there. My story started with him being a huge part of that, and I've had to really, really check in a lot with, like, is this codependency? Is this a healthy thing for me to be participating in? Should I have given myself some time to be in recovery, like solo, and every time I come back to all these questions, I'm reminded that I'm in the most healthy relationship that I've seen, like, anybody do, not just me, like, by far the healthiest thing I've ever done. But, like, I don't have friends that are in relationships that can communicate as well as we do. And, I think part of that is like my addict brain being like, it's going to fail, like,
yeah.
Wait, it's going to be fucked up. It's going to fuck,
Yeah, that self-prophecy bullshit right there. Yeah.
Yep. For me personally, I've kind of reached a point in just recovery in general, where my mind is pretty clear as far as all of that is concerned. And with again, we'll get into it later when we talk about the group, but the large amount of treatment and recovery things that I've done in my life, I totally lost.
So you've been to now. So Spike, I know you've been to prison. How many times did you ever go to rehab, like detox, any of those wind-up joints?
Yeah, I've literally been in every drug treatment program that the state of Colorado has to offer.
Like, yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, man.
20 years in the system. They ran me through some of those classes I've taken upwards of like 10 times. We used one.
Teach them.
I can literally teach them. Like we used one of them as our topic last week in our group, as a matter of fact. I totally forgot where I was going with all of that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. I mean, that's similar to, I can identify. I've been in 21 different inpatient facilities, right? So like whenever I got 30 days, death sentence for a large part of my life. Like 30 days was like, kind of like you were saying, Lane, like, I'll try this out for 100 days. Well, for me, it was like, but it wasn't premeditated. It was just, I don't know, something about that 30-day mark. I was like, fuck, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it really was. I know what I did wrong. I can avoid it this time, and then I'd be right back out there.
You sparked my memory. I remembered what I was trying to get at is that I'm in a place in my recovery where I genuinely like myself. Like I like the choice that I made. I think I made the right choice, and it's proven over and over again to be like a good thing. What is it, buddy? Come on. All right.
Dude, that's the good stuff.
We're in the middle of something here.
That's the good stuff,
that.
right? Nothing to be sorry for. That's awesome.
Kid life. I've learned to cope with the things that surround my addiction, my anger, my impulsiveness. And one thing that her and I have always done from the beginning is communicate those things both ways. And it doesn't hurt that we really like each other also. But we've just always had that level of communication to where even when we get in fights about things and we get in arguments, sometimes we definitely have things that clash once in a while, but it's never like it never escalates to the level of like blowout, because neither of us is there emotionally. Like we're pretty on the level, sometimes more so than we even think, as far as just where we're at in life. And I think that that's important. I think that a lot of people would say that, you shouldn't necessarily get into a relationship in recovery right away, or even on the tail of another one that quickly. But at the same time, like she said, she had kind of been dabbling in it for a while. And I think that in part it was a good chance for her to like take that plunge, and I don't know, it worked, and it felt right, and it still feels right. And I wake up every single day and I love her more than the day before still,
That's awesome, man. Now I am curious for both of y'all, like did you have a ground floor example on what a healthy relationship looked like? And
no.
So how did y'all learn that? Like what did that process look like for you? I mean, I know that, you guys definitely, you could tell, the audience, you guys are screwed because you're not able to see like the warm smiles and kind faces that I'm seeing right now. But for me, from where I'm sitting, when I'm looking at, I'm seeing two people who are absolutely 100% compatible. But even with that, like, I know that there is a learning curve for cats like us. Cause like, I didn't have, just like y'all, a good idea of what a healthy relationship looked like. There were some lessons that I had to learn along the way. What did that process look like for y'all?
one of the first things that we both really recognized and spoke on a lot was that there's an enormous amount of respect between us. I think the foundation that we had of being friends and having, laid this groundwork of communication around recovery was really beneficial to us. We still talk about that respect thing. There's certain things that I see other couples doing that we don't do. And I guess because we started as friends, maybe, or maybe because we have learned all of this emotional vocabulary in our recovery, we don't speak to each other shitty. We're not disrespectful to one another. I treat him like my friend. I treat him in a way that always maintains that there was a foundation of mutual respect and admiration. We haven't lost that. And I think because we haven't lost that, because we have that emotional vocabulary, because we're able to communicate about the things that we're experiencing together and separate from one another, we've never given ourselves the opportunity. I guess maybe we haven't yet. We haven't given ourselves the opportunity to resent one another. There's no resentment there, because we respect each other. And I think that that's possible because of the tools that we've gotten in recovery.
And again, it all comes back to both of us have done a substantial amount of work with ourselves and have learned how to genuinely love ourselves. And I think a lot of people miss that. There's a lot of people that are just, I guess what 12-step people would call white knuckling it. They're just, I'm sober and that's good enough.
Right.
And they're not really working on the reasons why they did those things in the first place. And for me, a lot of it all comes back to just like your animal brain, like your most basic, like it doesn't operate with morals or standards. It just wants to feel good all the time, and it will try to manipulate you emotionally sometimes to do the thing, whatever the thing is. And so I've done a lot of work about learning how to recognize those patterns and just kind of deal with them on the spot instead of letting them build up and become problems. And I think when you translate that to a relationship, when it's coming from, a place of like genuine love, I mean, you can't go wrong.
No, not at all. I mean, I'll go even a step further than that and to say that addicts, in recovery, regardless of the avenue that they choose, are learning to overcome a part of who they are. For whatever reason, the drug use, the addiction to the drugs was just a symptom of an underlying problem. There's a lot of different things, and we could try to give a ham-fisted solution and like all the college degrees out there try to do. But for those of us who've been there and done that and felt the flames, we know that, there's a lot of different unique stories on what that underlying thing is. But one of the prevalent things seems to be like that parasympathetic nervous system, is just all the time. And to overcome that without a substance at all, holy shit. Rock star status, man, in my opinion, but I really enjoy hearing stories like y'all's. I really enjoy hearing about those of us who made it out. And so I want to hear more about what are you guys doing today? Tell me about the DIY recovery. I want to hear about this.
Oh yeah. So
There you go.
yeah, I'll go.
It's what we came to Tulsa to do. I feel like we came here for this. Go.
This for me, it's kind of monumental because it's something that I've kind of been putting together like over the years. Initially, I thought that it was going to manifest itself in the form of like a book. Like I thought I was going to just like write all of it in a book and give it to the world. Like, here's this thing. But an interesting thing that happened when we were, obviously in the time that we've been together, you know, if we're having particularly hard times, we'll go to a meeting. We were doing Refuge Recovery in Colorado Springs, and occasionally we would go to AA if like that's what friends wanted to do or whatever. You know, I'm not opposed to that by any means. Get all you can. That's our motto, you know. But so we were going to some groups, and we had some pretty solid foundation there, and we came here. And we were having just, you know, new place problems. We were having issues with work, you know, inconsistent work or just whatever things were coming up. And we reached a point where we were like, you know, one of us said to the other one morning, well, maybe we should just find a meeting in town, you know, and kind of like go and just reset a little bit, get back to the root of it, which is that always. And so we looked, and to our knowledge, there was a couple of meetings that were like on hiatus because of COVID. I don't know what the status of those are, but as far as active meetings in our area, there was nothing that wasn't like church-based 12-step, pretty much like real hardline church-based 12-step. And we talked about it. What do we do? And she said, what if this is what we're supposed to do here? You know, our long-term goal of coming to Tulsa had always been to start kind of a recovery center. You know, we'd like to do like a coffee shop, and so just we have some goals for that, but we hadn't really put any of those pieces in place yet. And the most likely place to start was starting our own meeting. I can hear you want to talk, so by all means, please. The organization of this is definitely her child. She's very good at that sort of thing, and I'm kind of scattered. I have a lot of piles of things around my house. That's how I am. So she kind of takes all those things and puts them together. So I'll let her talk about.
I sat isolated in my house for all of 2020 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, dreaming of coming to Tulsa and doing something.
She did do that.
Like you said, we were going to a Refuge Recovery group. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's like a Buddhist space.
Yeah, tell us about it though a little bit, because I haven't really talked about it much on the show. So if you wanted to explain it a little further, you're free to do so.
Yeah, so Refuge Recovery was birthed out of Noah Levine's. Are you familiar with? Okay, let's backtrack to Noah Levine.
Noah Levine is the son of a famous Buddhist teacher named Stephen Levine, who was real active in like the 60s and 70s, at least the 70s. And he had this son named Noah Levine, who was a notorious bad apple. He got into drugs and went to jail a bunch, and it was just wild. He was a punk rock guy.
He's a punk rocker.
And he had been around his dad's teachings all of his life, and as he grew up, he decided to get sober, and he actually became a Buddhist monk for a period of time, and then decided to walk away from that and wrote a pretty famous book called Dharma Punks. It's it's just the story of punk rock Buddhism. Basically, it's his story. It's how he got where he was at, and he has kind of a radical approach to like mindfulness practice that he gets into in his group. And I'll leave the whole group mission statement for another show, but it's great. It's a great alternative. What?
Refuge Recovery. So we got Dharma Punks.
Yeah.
How did Refuge Recovery come from that?
Well, that's what I'm getting into.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness. It's Thursday. It's been a long week for me, at least. So he started this group called Refuge Recovery, which is I want to say it's lightly based in like 12-step tradition. They do some of this, they have some of the same stuff, but it definitely doesn't feel the same. And it's pretty heavily meditation based, which is over the years something that I've found useful in recovery as just a way to get in touch with the thoughts. But
so we were going to this group in Colorado Springs that we really loved. It's a mindfulness-based group. There was a meditation involved. We got super into that. I was going a lot during COVID because I was stuck in my house, and I say during COVID, like it was that one time that we had that thing that happened.
Right.
Not at all that it's still happening, but that's another thing. But I sat in my house in Colorado dreaming about going home, going to Tulsa and doing something different, doing something that Tulsa hadn't seen for sure. And maybe most other places hadn't seen either. And what I envisioned was this like kind of 90s style anarchist cafe where you can go in and you can, maybe there's meetings there on Monday and Wednesday night, but there's also like an open mic night. We do some classes and, we have some resources available for this and this. And I wanted it to be a recovery based facility, but I wanted to be able to do all kinds of shit. Let's have shows. Let's have let's teach a screen printing workshop. Let's do all this stuff, but let's provide something to the community that's A, all ages, and B, recovery based, so that people that are trying to find some peace, some peace through recovery have a place to go do that. That's not fucking church.
Yeah.
Hell
yeah.
I started, we started looking at meetings and we couldn't find anything that we wanted to participate in. And I had this dream of this cafe. We weren't there yet, but I was like, we were having a hard time like getting work. When we first came out here, we got a house right away and that was fine. But like the job situation was real sketchy and like people don't want to pay any money for fucking employees here, which, it's gnarly. But yeah, I was like, what if things are like, square peg round hole right now because we're not doing the shit that we came here to do. We came here to do something different, to bring something to this community that we learned elsewhere. Let's do that thing. We keep talking about it and we're not doing it. And I need a meeting right now. Like I'm fucking stressed and I need a meeting. And so we decided to build it, to make it, to grow it. And it's happening and it's coming together. And Sunday we've got, I don't know, like more people than have ever committed to being at group are going to be there. And I'm so excited.
Yeah. So
I
mentioned earlier, that I had all these ideas throughout my years and years of in and out of prison that I had put together and I had planned to write in a book. And when we talked about starting a group, I started thinking about how that would apply. And so far it has worked fantastically. It's called Zen and the Art of Whatever Works, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's literally, like I said, it's a do-it-yourself. I've been through so much therapy. I've been through so many classes. I've done so many books cover to cover, and I've literally just gleaned all of the useful things out of all of them, because some of it just, some of it was bullshit. A lot of it, I thought, but that everything has something useful to it. And it's actually like in our kind of mission statement that there are over 210 models of addiction recovery therapy, and you can literally get useful things out of every single one of them. So the purpose of our group is to explore all of the avenues until you find the one that fucking resonates with you, because
man,
not everybody fits into the traditional big book values. Not everybody fits into, any of it. But if you comb through all of it enough, you will find something that you can relate to, and hopefully find the way that you can live your life without that suffering, I guess. And so what we did was we called our buddy in Colorado who ran the Refuge Recovery group there, and said, how do we do this? We're ready. And he sent us like some outlines of like, basic, like how a group goes. What do you do to fill up an hour with a bunch of strangers that would rather be on drugs? And that's, we basically took those outlines and we kind of gave it that do-it-yourself spin to it, and changed it to meet our needs. And it's a support group is what it is. It's not I'm not claiming that it's some kind of like, magic medical cure for anything. It's literally just a group of people who have been through a bunch of shit that don't fit into the mold of traditional recovery, trying to figure it out, basically. And so far we've had a great response from the people that we have that come regularly. They're like, you can come and get all the shit off your fucking chest. You can chill out a little bit, and you don't have to worry about somebody trying to like talk you into something that you don't necessarily buy into. You don't have to be anything. You just show up with an open mind and a willingness to explore what makes you do what you do.
Here's the beautiful part of it, right? When we look at maybe not the census numbers, because we don't take census and traditional 12-step meetings, but certainly we take census numbers and rehabilitation programs across the country. We look at those who came, those who stayed, yada, yada, but we never look at those who never made the attempt. And what I feel like you too have built with this, you're reaching that unknown number. You're reaching that unknown population.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And my heart is just swelling, at the thought of that. The fact that if you build it, they will come. Like you had, man, I'm getting emotional, man. Like that's huge.
We had a need, and that's how we filled it, was to just do it ourselves.
I've talked to so many people in our community that are baffled. They're like, oh, I had no idea there was something else. I didn't know that was one of the options. And I'm like, yeah, there's like 200 something else's, and you can kind of pick and choose. And we've set up a space where you can come be safe and supported and find the things that work for you. A couple weekends ago, we did art therapy together.
That was a good one.
I put out a big box of art supplies, and we did we did a short art project. It wasn't extensive. We spent 20 minutes on it. We did a meditation, and then we pulled out the art supplies and we talked about resilience. One of the main themes that keeps coming up in group, because I don't know, I think it's just addict shit. We keep having this conversation about, well, I'm just kind of feeling lost right now because I didn't expect to live this long. I didn't expect to get here.
Yes.
Like I didn't make a plan
Yes.
for this part. Now all of a sudden I'm in my 30s and I'm freaking out because I didn't plan to live past 23 and I have no idea what I'm doing.
I just turned 40. That was crazy.
Right? So so this theme, it's become a theme. Like we keep talking about it. And so we had a whole group about resilience, and I was like, okay, so it's not blind fucking luck that we ended up here. Like some of this we need to give credit to ourselves. Some of it we've got to start giving ourselves a little bit of credit here. We've overcome a lot to get to where we're at, and we need to give some credit where credit's due. And I want everyone here to illustrate as simply or complexly as you feel appropriate in a piece of art, an example of nature being resilient in nature, or in a city. So some of the people did like, roots coming up through a sidewalk, and one of the projects was coral on the reef. It was cool. It was fun. And it was something that I've never seen in an AA meeting ever. We're all a bunch of artsy, fucking weirdos. We're weird.
I want to cut in and just say that, just for the record, we're not at war with 12-step or no. Dr. Bob and Bill. We're not knocking that. I go to those meetings still from time to time, and we will explore their method just as much as anyone else, in the future. We were just doing hungry, angry, lonely, tired the other day. I'm sure you've heard that one.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely not something that we're unfamiliar with, and it's definitely not something that we're like trying to bash. I don't want anybody that's listening to this to think like, oh, they're just trying to like start some flame war with AA. We're not doing that. And in fact, if you want to go to both, you totally should go to our group, and then you should go to their group, and you should go to as many as you feel like you need, because that's the whole, it's not about what I think or what she thinks. It's about what you think that you need,
For sure.
So recovery is a selfish thing. You gotta take care of number one.
With my own story, around the Oklahoma City area, Alcoholics Anonymous is the big dog in town, right? Like that's the recovery program. You can find a million different meetings.
It helps millions of people.
And it does. But I never had a noticeable problem with alcohol. My problem was putting whatever illicit substance inside of a needle and blasting off. Like that was my thing. And so when I would hear people talk about an addict not belonging, even though like I knew how to speak the language by that point, they were talking to me without knowing they were talking to me and making me feel less than and not a part of. And so I experienced that outsiderness inside of a crowd of people. And when for me personally, my program is Narcotics Anonymous. And I went out and started an NA meeting without even, I never even read the literature. I didn't know a thing about NA, but I built it. And friends of mine who were having no problem whatsoever hanging out in the rooms of AA asked me why. And I said, it's not about appeasing you people who are able to hang out in the rooms of AA. It's about reaching those people who never made it.
Right.
And that's, so you guys are doing something, because I've been to NA, AA, CA, SA. I've been to all day, Celebrate Recovery. I tried, going to 21 different rehabs, you're going to find out about some other stuff. but you guys are providing all of that to people so they don't have to do that. And you've cornered, I think, a huge section of the population that those of us who hang out in the 12-step recovery community refuse to acknowledge.
Right.
Because it is an uncomfortable truth. The uncomfortable truth is that not everybody finds it in AA. Not everybody finds it in NA.
Well, and because a lot of people would like to think that they're pretty normal.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like they're different from everybody else in the world that works for. But the truth of it is, sometimes you can't relate to it. And since we've started this, I've met a bunch of people that have lived here all their lives that have said, I never even knew that that was a thing that you could do. Like, you know, I thought they had cornered the market on recovery, and you know.
Well, how many people do we know that attempted AA or NA and it didn't vibe with them, or, you know, they couldn't relate to it for whatever reason, and they just thought that was it.
Shut the
They're
door.
okay, well, I guess I'm just an addict then. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
And that isn't the only option. And one of the things that we try to emphasize is, you know, like we discussed at the beginning, harm reduction. You know, like one of the things that I experienced in meetings, you know, the only requirement is a desire to be eating. Okay. But like, if I show up smelling like alcohol, you're going to treat me like shit, you know? And like, that's not, I don't care what you did last night. If you partied last night and you need a meeting this morning, please come. Yeah. Nobody here is going to judge you. Nobody here is going to be shitty to you. Like, we understand that, you know, like Spike's discussed at the beginning, Spike's a cannabis user. I'm a cannabis user. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I was discussing this with one of my friends last night. I personally have this list of questions that I use to check in with all kinds of things that my brain gets off on, whatever it is. Like, it really is not just substances, because I'm an addict. And so I will be addicted to anything that feels good. Mm-hmm. Anything. You know, I'll go through patterns where I'm jerking off too much, or, you know, for me, whatever you do is fine. But
no, you see the double chins? It's tacos for me now. Yeah, right?
Tacos.
I mean,
you understand.
Yes, I get it.
So, you know, so I got this list that I check in. You know, did I spend money on this thing before I took care of my responsibilities? Did I put myself in a situation that was unsafe or uncomfortable or dangerous to get this thing that I want? And did I do anything that I regretted under the influence of this thing? And so I use this list with all kinds of stuff, and cannabis is one of those things that I check in with pretty regularly. And what I'm finding with cannabis is that I think it makes me a better mom. I'm more inclined to get on the floor and race cars. I'm more creative. I'm more patient. And I've never had the tendency to abuse it. And I think it helps me in my recovery. I'm not on any kind of pharmaceuticals right now because I have the option of using cannabis to help me with my anxiety, to help me with my depression. And I want people to understand that you can be in recovery and use cannabis, and if you need a group to come be a part of and still do that, like, you have a home in our group, because, you know, it's about minimizing harm.
Yes.
You know, it's about doing better today than you did yesterday, and whatever means you need to do that.
It's about making the best of the short little bit of time that we have on this planet. You know, it's about being tired of being miserable and trying to improve, even if it's just a little bit, even if you just, whatever it is, if you just make an attempt to figure it out, you know, you're doing something. And if we if we have one person that comes to group and gets something out of it and feels fulfilled and like they have a chance to do something, then we've done what we came for. And in the long run, it helps us also. You know, it's for us just as much as it's for everybody there. Like we are there and doing it because we require it. We require
Right.
some kind of just touching base with that consciousness, with that part of our lives. We have to remain in touch with it because it's always there and it always will be.
Man, that's here. And here's the cool thing. So you guys are building this. You're doing this on your own, and you're learning lessons along the way. You're finding out, okay, this worked, this didn't. And the
Right.
cool thing is you're going to be able to show other people how to do exactly that.
Right.
Whether or not you know it, you are sparking something. And I just know that this is going to reach people. Like you said, if it reaches just one person, you've done your job. But I feel like this is going to reach such a broad audience. And I, for one, feel privileged to be able to just talk to you guys and be able to meet people like you and extend my recovery family just a little bit further.
Yeah.
So one thing that I have all of my guests do who come on and share their story and talk about recovery is I want you to take a few minutes to speak to that person in the audience who has hit that brick wall for the millionth time and they don't know what to do. They're looking for a way out. What is a piece of advice bred out of experience that you can give to them to give them a little bit of hope tonight?
I should go first.
Oh man.
No pressure now.
That's such a tough one because, I mean, to me, it feels like if I'm giving somebody one piece of advice that they're going to take with them, what if I give them the wrong one? You know what I mean? Oh, shit. If only you'd have zigged when you zagged. You know? For me, one of the biggest roadblocks was, what do I do without this thing that I've done my whole life? How do I meet women if I'm not at a bar, you know, showing them how wasted I can get, because women love that, you know? How just, what do I do? How do I do life? And my advice is that there is, not only is there absolutely life after that, but it's infinitely better than your highest high ever was, when you genuinely like have put all of the things in place. Like I said, it's the best decision for my life that I ever made, because I wake up and have shitty days all the time where my shit breaks or my fucking whatever doesn't happen the way that I want it to, and none of it is as dismal or dreary as it was then. You know, it's trivial now by comparison, because you get all that shit out of your brain and learn how to feel feelings again, you know, genuine feelings that for some of us we never experienced in our lives. I had all kinds of partners throughout my life. And I'm not saying that I don't love any of those people. I definitely still love several of those people, but I don't know that I knew how to give someone a relationship type of love, because I didn't know how to care about myself, you know. Man, advice, I don't know. Just go to the thing, you know, go to the meeting, go to the event, whatever. If it's a fucking picnic or whatever, just go and see, you know, in your mind, you can give yourself all kinds of reasons not to go, but what's it going to hurt to go and see, you know?
I'm going to piggyback on that.
Oh, say
and and say one of the most crucial things for me in the beginning was really actively building a sober support system, building a community of people around me who were working towards the same objective. The thing that I found in the recovery community is that we were all damaged people with enormous amounts of trauma who were looking for peace of mind. And we weren't all doing it the same. We didn't all have the same ideas or values or any of that. But I knew when I plugged in and actively surrounded myself with people in recovery that we all had that one objective. We were actively seeking peace of mind. We wanted peace and healing and growth, you know, and that's how you get there, right? So that was the first thing that I would say is that moment that you decide you're ready to be out. When you're ready to be out from underneath it, surround yourself with that community, that sober community. The second thing is that when I was in active addiction, my life was chaotic. It was hellacious all of the time. Constantly felt like I just couldn't catch a break. It was always some dumb shit. And I want to say that I don't have any of the chaos, the drama, the insecurity that I had before, but I still have high highs and low lows. And I think it's important to have a realistic understanding of that going into early recovery. That if you're one of those people who has a lot of trauma and you have high highs and low lows, you're still going to have that. And the good thing about entering down this path is that we just get the tools to navigate the high highs and the low lows. And
if you search all the corners of the world, you know, you may find some tools that you didn't even know existed. If you analyze all the things that are available to you, and there are literally hundreds of things that you can explore, and I encourage everyone to explore.
I think that's kind of the point I've reached in my recovery. At this point, I'm coming up on 4 years, and I'm not feeling the torment in such a capacity that I was. I've done enough healing and growing that it's not so painful just to fucking exist, just to wake up in the morning. It doesn't feel painful anymore, in the way that it did, I guess I should say. And now I'm just on this journey to collect all the tools. I just want the biggest badass like tool belt that there ever was. And I want every tool to navigate the things. So that's where I'm at.
Here's the cool thing. And I was paying attention, I promise, but I had to look it up just to make sure that I had my reference correct on Google. But what y'all have tapped into is the recovery version of secular humanism. You have taken the best aspects of all the things and you're making that work. And I think in a way, that's what so many of us do, even in the rooms, is that I certainly don't agree with everything I hear. I mean, I hear a lot of dumb shit in the meeting, you know, not every single one, but across the time that I've sat in the rooms, and especially all those trips to rehab, I've heard a lot of things that, you know, get memory hold. I mean, I'm never going to, think about that again, but there's bits and pieces, right? There's bits and pieces.
And how much have the rooms changed in 30 years?
Oh my God. So vastly
it's not
different.
Even the same room.
No. And like, I'm like a freaking boomer when it comes to like the recovery. Like I listen to the old speakers. I listen to the guys from way back when in, you know, and the women and men from the very beginning stages of Narcotics Anonymous, and listen to what they talk about. And they talk about like people getting kicked out for taking an Advil or an aspirin, you know,
Sure.
being told to get a white key tag, a 24-hour key tag, because, hey man, you relapsed. And, you know, that's certainly not where we are anymore.
Those groups
Right.
were being run by some straight edge guys.
Yeah.
They were imposing their straight edge will on someone.
Without a doubt. So what you guys touched on there is so incredibly valid, and I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to sit here and not only to meet you, but to hear your story. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what this thing turns into and watching it catch fire. For the immediate sense, how can people find you? Where can they go to these meetings at?
Well, I'm hesitant to
We're in the process of changing locations right now, but we
Okay.
have a Facebook group, so people can come find us on
Right.
Facebook and
Okay.
plug in there. It is a private group, but the easiest way to find it is to find me.
Okay.
So find me on Facebook. My name is Lainey Worley. I'll get you added to the Facebook group so that we can keep everybody posted on we're in the process of a change of location. So
right. We've just literally been doing it in our home, like in our living
Oh
room.
yeah, definitely do not say the address on here.
So I'm not
do
going to put
that.
my address
No,
on here.
no, yeah. I
But
apologize.
I will say that we are like hot on the trail of a permanent location. We were in one location, and a whole bunch of stuff happened, and it's probably getting torn down. So we started doing it in our home.
that sounds so sketchy. It really wasn't sketchy at all.
No, they're remodeling the whole neighborhood. They're redoing the whole thing. So it's our initial location didn't work out. We started doing it in our home, and we've actually in the last couple of weeks started getting more and more new faces. So we're actively trying to find something new. But like she said, if you just find us Spike and Laney Whirley, WHIRLEY, on Facebook, and reach out to us, and we will try to get back to people, as quickly as possible. We have a group. We're hoping to also start doing some live streams.
Maybe you could help us with that. Is that something?
Yes.
I know you said you weren't necessarily the tech guy, but you're the podcast guy. Can
Hey,
you help us stream?
Look, I'm sure I have enough people in my circle and enough people in y'all's circle. We can put our heads together and figure this thing out. Not a problem whatsoever. And
we've had a lot of people that have said, I live in this other town and I'd like to go, but I'm not trying to drive a couple hours, and that's understandable. So, we do share the meditation practices on the page right now because most of them are just off of the internet. But we're hopefully going to just start actually live streaming groups. And eventually, if it grows enough, we'll probably start handing it off to some other people that have, been with us since the beginning, and let them do their own thing also, because the whole point of it is, if nothing else works, do it yourself.
Man, and for those people listening who don't have a Facebook, y'all can get a hold of me. I'm going to stay in touch with y'all, and so we will make this happen. And I do have a really good idea for the live stream, by the way, which I'll talk to you whenever we stop recording.
Yeah.
But just to wrap it up real quick, thank you guys so much for coming on. This won't be your only appearance. I hope you know that. Like, I'm going to pressure you to come back on eventually. But thanks again, guys, for coming on.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, there you have it, guys. If you're able to, if you're still in the Facebook world, go find them, go link up with them, see whatever you can do to help them out. Because like I said, and like you heard, that is a huge program that's going to benefit a lot of people. There's a lot of folks that never felt comfortable in the 12-step rooms, or they simply never found the right group for them. What Lane and Spike are building here is something that can dramatically change the outcome for somebody, so long as they can get linked up with them. So absolutely go find them. Lane, Spike, thank you to both of y'all for coming on and talking with me. And I look forward to having you guys on in the future and seeing where you go with this deal. So with that, that's the show for the week. I picked a song because of the fact that it does not cease to amaze me how once again the whole Russia thing is back in the news, right? We got to go to war with Russia. All this craziness going on with Ukraine. I don't know, man. All I know is that I don't trust anybody that wants to send our sons and daughters to fight in wars overseas on somebody else's conflict. That's not our place to be there. So, here's the thing. The people making the decision to send our loved ones over there to die in a war overseas yet again, none of their family is going to be sent, right? It's us. It's the privileged class that gets to stay home and make those decisions. So I thought, what better song to play with that in mind than Fear's Let's Have a War. So here you go.